Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us at today's webinar, Pragmatic Supply Chain 4.0 Strategies to Transform the Building and Construction Material Industry. I'm Candace Miller, Senior Director, Global Events at Birlasoft. And now for introductions to our industry experts. Please welcome our first panelist today, Wasi Ahmed, CIO at Foundation Building Materials. Our second featured panelist is Murali Raj, CIO at HIL Limited. Our next industry expert and moderator is Ajay Tiwari, Vice President and Head of Manufacturing at Birlasoft. Today's agenda will cover why Supply Chain 4.0 is critical to the future of the building and construction material industry, how to build your Supply Chain 4.0 roadmap, a sneak peek into how building and construction material players are benefiting from Supply Chain 4.0, and long and short-term benefits of supply chain digitalization for the building and construction material industry. If you have questions during the webinar, you can submit them via the question feature. We will address all unanswered questions in a follow-up email. Without further delay, let's turn to Ajay to begin today's discussion.
Thank you, Candace. It gives me immense pleasure to have the esteemed panel of Wasi and Murali today to discuss strategies to adopt Supply Chain 4.0 in building and construction material industry. Let me take this moment to set the stage up. The adoption of Industry 4.0 is gradually gaining acceptance in the BCM industry. In fact, the current business situation post-pandemic has increased the velocity of Industry 4.0 adoption for companies who were early adopters stood to gain getting out of the COVID situation. We have had quite a few examples of companies in the BCM industries of having adopted AI 4.0, examples such as leveraging analytics to drive predictive maintenance and predictive quality, using digital twins for end-to-end optimization, usage of AR, VR, autonomous vehicles, robots, drones for quality and inspections. In fact, usage of a robot for performing tasks in an area where there are adverse working conditions. There are many such examples of adoption in the BCM industry. However, today we shall focus on how we can leverage Industry 4.0 technologies to reimagine, redesign the supply chain, or popularly referred to as Supply Chain 4.0, to provide for efficient, granular, flexible, faster, transparent, and collaborative supply chain in the BCM industry. See, we have encountered various problems in the supply chain industry segment when it comes to BCM industry situations such as low levels of supply chain visibility, demand-supply mismatch, poor service levels, and many others have always inhibited the industry operations. With the emerging adoption of digitalization, BCM manufacturers have a great opportunity at their hand to radically transform their supply chain. Using the Industry 4.0 technology stacks such as artificial intelligence, automation, IIoT, and many more, this industry can drive transformative gains across the full value chain. So the question is, how to go about building a fail-proof strategy to transform their supply chain. So to address that, I would like to gain more insights from the esteemed panelists over here. So towards that, I would pose my first question to Wasi. Wasi, if you could tell us how is the supply chain evolving in the building construction material industry? What are the trends? What are the challenges that we're facing out there? Can you please give us some point of view?
And thank you, Ajay. Again, thank you for giving me the opportunity. So, as you mentioned, when it comes to supply chain and BCM industry is a little bit behind in terms of adoption of technology compared to other industry. So there's always a catching up part that we are all doing. But we current situation with the pandemic, and even before the pandemic, and everybody realized that there has to be certain amount of automations and modernization of the whole BCM industry supply chains. Challenges that we face is a lot has to do with change management and technology adoptions. You are dealing in an industry where the employee turnovers is really high. So it's difficult how we manage some of those conditions and apply the proper technology. And it all comes to in the right measure, right? You just don't want to throw the whole gauntlet of technology to an industry which is really still in the very early infancy of the automations and modernization. So the challenges that I see is the number one is change management. How do we get people accept what is coming? People are very much used to the way they are working with traditional supply chain. Now we need to educate them. But again, if we want to compete and the expectation being set by industry leaders such as Amazon and other retailers is customers are expecting almost same amount of technology and efficiency as they're ordering from Amazon. Even though we are not in the same industry, but the customers buying the personal items from retailers, e-retailers, and they're expecting that BCM industry is the same thing. So we are seeing demands for robots, automations, artificial intelligence, demands for notifications, all of those coming across. And then with this, supply chain 4.0 comes right into the picture because what we talked about a little bit earlier is supply chain 4.0 is bringing everything into the industry, maybe a little bit slower pace. Whereas data requirement analytics, the automations, giving real times, customer notifications when the product is coming. Our customer expect to know when the truck is leaving the facility, when they're supposed to deliver the product. It is becoming more of a just-in-time inventory situation, just like in auto industry many years back. Our customer expect product to be delivered on time on the same day, and the accuracy and the efficiency is all coming into the picture as we evolve.
Right. No, thank you, Wasi. This is very helpful. So, you alluded to the fact that there's a substantial amount of change management that is involved, and the customer expectations has increased because of the so-called Amazon effect that we have, the concept of having just-in-time delivery of the product and services. So, Murali, if I could ping on you, how are digital technologies actually driving this reimagining the whole supply chain 4.0 mandate in the industry? What would your point of view be?
Thanks, Ajay. Thanks, Ajay, for this opportunity. So if you look at digital technologies, they have been transforming the organizations, right? And very specific to supply chain, the supply chain evolution from 2 to SEM 3 to SEM 4 now is because of these technologies. And very specific and very specific to BCM space. There are a couple of technologies that I feel are driving the changes that are making this happen. The first and foremost, as we Wasi mentioned and you introduced as well, is IIoT, which is driving the industry 4.0 revolution. This is absolutely changing the way the operations manufacturing happens, and the sensorization that is happening across the supply chain all brings together a change and a disruptive nature for the supply chain in BCM space. The second trend is AI ML driven predictive algorithms, right? So we talked about Amazon way of looking at the supply chain. If you look at Amazon, they have something called as predictive shipping. They mastered it, they IP'd it as well. Now the BCM space is expecting the same kind of a change, not only from a predictive shipping perspective, but these algorithms, right? AI ML driven algorithms can do predictive maintenance, predictive quality. It can even predict depot wise demand forecasting. So the lot can be done on AI ML space. This is second trend that is driving this, shaping up the SEM 4.0. The third one is, as we spoke, automation, right? And I see automation in two space. One is process automation, cognitive and intelligent automation on the processes itself. The second one is mechanization within the automation space, right? So where you see how the fully warehouse is automated, the loading and unloading is automated, the way the entire supply chain reacts to this automation is, as you talked about, the speed at which it happens, the granularity at which it happens. So this automation is also helping to shape up uh, this change in supply chain. There are other technologies as well, Ajay. One is augmented reality and virtual reality space. This again helps in BCM space very much, not just in the manufacturing, but even in the construction space as well. The last and most important one that is shaping up softly the entire SEM space is collaboration over cloud. So there are the entire supply chain partners now can collaborate over the cloud, including at the place where it is consumed. The building materials are consumed, the construction site as well. So this is important one that is slowly and steadily changing the SCM perspective. These are all the technologies, and I already see a disruptive nature coming into the BCM space. Wasi was mentioning that there's a slow adoption in BCM. Absolutely yes. When compared to retail chains or the FSI space. But now is the time for BCM to change, and we already see adoption getting driven by people like Wasi, me, and others in space. Yeah.
No, thank you, only for that perspective. The technologies that you brought out around AI, ML adoption, automation, AR, VR, and collaboration, so cloud. Now, see, it seems like supply chain is certainly playing an integral role in future of an efficient BCM industry as we go forward. To what extent does the future depend upon any SCM 4.0 adoption? And if you have some, real life examples that you can associate with this or the use cases that will throw more light in terms of the amount of changes that we bring about by these transformation.
Good question, Ajay. So the question is why the importance of SCM adoption in BCM space, which is very relevant in the ages that we live now. So I approach this from a frame. Let me talk about it a little bit, Ajay. The first one is materials itself, right? So you have primary materials, which are important for getting your prime foundation in place, like cement and steel. And the secondary materials which come in once the primary structure in place in any construction in the BCM space. You look at this material space, there's a lot of innovation happening, a lot of new materials getting introduced because of like eco-friendly, self-healing products, the varieties that are coming in, the lot size are changing. So from a material space itself, you see a lot of changes, and at a very rapid space it is happening. The second factor is the art and science of construction. This itself is getting changed, right? You're looking at a mechanization of eco-skeleton, where a person can wear a skeletal which can be used to for warehouse lifting and loading, in the construction space lifting and loading, and to another extent of 3D printing. The 3D printing is changing the way the construction can happen as well. So this is again changing in very rapidly if you see this space as well. The third one is, which is very inherent to BCM space, Ajay, right? Mm-hmm. The location of where these building materials are consumed are not constant, right? So it depends on the urbanization, it depends on the reality sector where it is moving, the development of the infrastructure driven by the governments, etc. So the consumption itself gets changed. So which means dynamically, the supply chain has to be looked at regular intervals to replan, redesign. This is an inherent of BCM industry. The fourth one, as we all spoke about a little earlier, is the customer expectations, the granularity, the speed at which it should be serviced, the lot size it should be serviced. Everything is coming into play right now. If you look at all this, right, so you see early signs of disruption that is setting in. The other factor is you see a lot of startups coming in this space, BCM space. You look at retail, what happened to retail and digitalization of retail, these are all the factors. Look at BFSI space, These are all the factors. And now BCM. Definitely, this adoption of SCM is very critical for BCM right now. As you said rightly, if you are leading this change, you will survive the pandemic, you will survive anything that is going to hit you in the change. And that's how I see it. I use this frame to look at how and why SCM 4.0 is adoption is very important for BCM industry right now.
Well, thank you, Murali. This is really insightful. Now, so the question therefore comes up is, as the senior leaders within your organization, Wasi, if I may ask you, how would you build up the strategic roadmap for the supply chain 4.0 adoption, given what Murali just mentioned? So, what would you say around that?
I think Murali covered a lot at the same point that I was going to bring up. But I think there's four things, and I think it depends on geography where you are, dictate some of the differentiations. And in the U.S. and North America, and we are having, even though in the pandemic, we're having severe labor shortages, especially in our industry. We are not able to find workers, and that brings in an efficiency issue, right? We have to design the supply chains around the efficiency. The customer expectation has changed, as I mentioned before. Doesn't matter what industry you are. Amazon made the change that I want something fast. I want something I ordered today. I want to get it at the end of the day. And a lot of the cases applies to in the BCM, because we are in the construction industry. Our builders and construction contractor may run out of materials anytime, and they might want to call us and I want X number of things delivered here. And we have to do that. So the fast and the flexibility comes in the big time when you design a strategy. I don't think you should just look into the the most shiny technology, most sexy technology that you can deploy, but you also need to understand what your customer demographics are. What the expectation are from the customer side, and kind of design your strategy based on expectations from your customer, because in BCM industry, we are never able to be the same level at Amazon, but where you need to go, what the right amount of investment, all of those needs to come into the pictures. And few things, as I say, four things. The industry in deciding the strategy is to keep in mind is the flexibility, the more granulars, adoptions and technology, as well as efficiency, because at the end of the day, the margin in supply in the BCM industry is very low, and the efficiency is going to create the whole difference and come up, make the winner or loser in terms of who is more efficient in the industry.
Great, Wasi. Murali, any thoughts around the strategic roadmap for adoption?
Yes. So Wasi covered a lot, Ajay, but let me bring in a perspective that I use for building a roadmap, right? So I call it as 3 R's. One is research. We spoke about it, Wasi spoke about it, which means the maturity level of the organization, the industry, the competitive space you are in, the geography you are in. So you do a lot of understanding of the process, where the pain points in the process exist in process. So you do all this as a first step. The second art is predominantly on reimagination that we all spoke about. So you bring in design thinking workshops as a way to look at all these problem statements and come out with initiatives. This is where you can even bring in external business consulting partners. So where I was working in this assignment, we had brought in business and consulting partners and Birlasoft to look at how we can reimagine the entire space. And a lot of initiatives were identified based on the pain points. This reimagination can happen when you bring in customers, our partners or suppliers into the entire discussion as well, right? So now you have a list of initiatives that we need to look at for roadmap building. The third R is about roadmap itself. The way you sequence it, the way you look at what blocks you have to bring in first, second, and third, and which part of the supply chain you need to look at as a first step. All this comes into the roadmap exercise. So this is how we look at building a roadmap. Especially from an SC4 perspective.
Excellent.
There's a lot of outside in perspective that needs to be brought in because it depends on the maturity of your organization as well.
Right. No, that's helpful. The 3R methodology that you come up with, I hope you haven't got that patented yet. we can probably incorporate that and start advocating that within the customer segment as we go forward. But no, this is helpful. Now, if you were to give some use cases in terms of how the BCM companies are in specifically using the AI or automation or IoT to modernize their supply chain, any specific examples around this technology stack?
Yes, definitely I can share, Ajay. So we have been implementing Industry 4.0, almost 5 plants, manufacturing plants out of 20 manufacturing plants that we have across Indian geography. We are already on Industry 4.0. So we have implemented connected shop floor, which gives us real-time visibility of OEE of a machine, of a production line, and the plant as well. So it's completely paperless. While we were looking at reshaping and reimagining our Industry 4.0 journey, one of the consultants spoke about how the curing of the materials, right? In the production, most of our building materials need curing as a process, and it gets impacted by the environmental factors. He was able to demonstrate how a digital twin as a use case, this could be entirely simulated so that your curing time can be predicted. And it's a long curing time. Sometimes it is a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks for the depending upon the product. And if it's able to be predicted, your shipping time to the customer improves a lot. There was one more use case shared by another partner, which is you have depots in building in BCM space. You have depots distributed across the geography where the building construction happens. Um, Depending upon the real sector growth, etc., it keeps changing. So AI algorithms were written to predict the inventory levels of these depots depending upon the construction sites uh, progress. So they were. This is another use case that was brought up in our imagining exercise. There is one more that we are also looking at is predicting the quality based on the raw material quality that comes in. So if you look at manufacturing of building materials, the raw materials comes in tankers, and the quality of these raw materials, there is a variation. There's a slight variation, but when you're combining a group of raw materials with multiple variability factor in place, the output keeps changing. The quality needs to be predicted from that perspective. And writing a prediction algorithm based on the dynamic nature of the quality of the truck that has come in, the recipe becomes more dynamic. So that is another use case that we are also thinking how to work on it. There was one more use case again that was looked at in a forum where I was participating is commodity intelligence. If you look at BCM space, most of the raw materials are commodities. And AI algorithms are written to see how the commodity buying can happen, bulk buying can happen based on the past trend and the future trends, etc. So if you look at BCM space at a high level, there are a lot of use cases that can come up. It is just that reimagination that needs to happen with an outside-in perspective for your organization and with the maturity levels that you're currently in. I'm definitely sure that more than what I have said, there'll be more use cases that can come.
Excellent. No, good examples here. Murali, thanks for sharing industry-specific, domain-specific examples here in terms of curing time, productivity, predictive quality, and so on and so forth. You know, if you were to extend this, Wasi, in your world, what are a few of these similar use cases that you've been seeing? Any comments on that?
Yeah, so in our industry, I can tell you, I'll give a couple of specific examples that we are implementing or almost done with. Is as it says, we not only distribute, you also deliver a product. Some of the constructions are new constructions, so they are not in the U.S. Postal Service map yet, so it doesn't have a zip code and doesn't have any of this information. So how you deliver a truckload of product in a area there's nothing there, right? So we use partner with Samsara. We use geofencing, and our AI based on the certain coordinates, the lat long coordinates. We are building that algorithms to properly direct our trucks to deliver the product in the right places. So this is one example of we are using AI in real time in our industry in making sure we have efficiency in our delivery, so truck driver doesn't run around a couple of hours looking for the place. We pinpoint exactly where it is, and we send those direction into the tablets on the truck, so it takes them exactly where they're supposed to go. So this is actually brings up a lot of time savings for us, because other than that, if you don't know exactly what the direction is, it's going to be looking around quite a bit. The other example would be, in most of the time, in our industry, we deal with a lot of data. Data is critical part of it. We use our data warehouse. We use different algorithms. Look for certain, what are the best routes we can calculate, and how the best way to optimize our truck loading. And we use very heavily our AI technology, our data warehousing technology, to give the business that edge that they need. And there's a lot of, and as I said, we have just started in the whole journey. There is a long way to go. I think we have so much opportunity in this industry to automate and apply the technology. But then again, as I said, we have to make sure we do the measure technology. We cannot throw everything at one point. You just have to make sure pick up the best low-hanging fruits and tackle those and show the return ROI, and then move on, right? So this industry, as I said, very low margin, high volume. So you got to pick up your right sweet spot where you're going to tackle.
Actually, this leads me to the next question, Wasi, over here. You did bring out the ROI and for the use cases and investments that you can make to get benefits out of it. In your experience, what are the benefits that you see, and if you can point a few more, expect from these supply chain 4.0 investments?
Yeah, see, we are very much a customer-centric organization. The whole industry, the BCM industry, when you come to the distribution side of it, is a relationship-based, right? It's who you know and how do you know those people, and if you know a industry leader, they will do business with you, right? So we got to make sure we cater to that relationship. How do we enhance that relationship, right? So any of this efficiency is not only going to give you that savings, but we can also pass those savings into our customers. And sometimes in our industry, time is more important than money. Timely delivery of the product, so they don't have hundreds of people sitting around, workers sitting around to build something, is very critical. So that's kind of technology that we are implementing is going to help us drive that efficiency and provide our customer better services. So this is where I think the end game is customer satisfactions, and that's where we think we are striving towards providing our customers the edge with technology implementations. That's we believe is the right direction we are going.
Great. Wasi, any comments that you would have, Murali, on this one? On investments, benefits out of the supply chain 4.0 investments?
I can share a couple of them, Ajay. So when we rolled out connected shop floor as an industry 4.0 adoption for one of our plants, right? The ROI was less than a year. It was around 8 months for the investment that we made. So it's sometimes when these new technologies are getting envisaged and reimagined, there's a lot of assumptions that it needs a lot of investment and there are no returns, etc. So, but really, there are, if you get down to the details and see how it works, this is one example. So within 8 months, we were able to give the returns for the investment that has gone for a connected shop floor in one of the plants, right? We were trialing something on predictive maintenance, right? As Washi was mentioning, sometimes the benefits are qualitative, right? So here there were 2 incidents. Failures of bearings in a motor was identified even before the motor went broke down, right? So now, so the maintenance was planned, the production was not impacted. The loss of materials for a process also was not there because of the failures. So how do we quantify that? So it's no, sometimes qualitative measures are also need to be looked at for the benefits. Um, that's how I say.
So thank you, Murali. See this, if you said that we can identify projects which are less than a year payback, it's a self-funding exercise, right? If anything project that pays off within a year, I think that's an excellent way to identify what are the various proof of concepts or pilots that we can pick up in that space, or projects for that matter. I think that was very insightful, Murali and Vashi, for sharing your point of view. Now we are. Any closing comments, Vashi, that you would have, given where the trends are, what is going on, the investments that we made, the use cases that we've seen so far, and the business benefits, and in terms of what would be, how would you set up the strategy for SC, the supply chain 4.0?
Yeah. Yeah, so no, as I said, as what I'm seeing is, the BCM industry is a little bit different than manufacturing part of the BCM, right? In our industry, it's purely distributions, and we're supporting the end customers, which is, the building industry, right? And so, we need to apply the supply chain not only just for the traditional supply chain, which is warehouse to the customers, right? You got to go back all there to the manufacturing, from the MRP planning, all of those in the manufacturing process, everything that needs to get in one framework. So you cannot just do one part of the supply chain with just from the warehouse to the customer side, but you got to go back a few more steps and go back all there to the manufacturer's planning part of it. And again, what I see that the whole industry is going to come into the terms that they need to be more digitized, they need to get more flexible, and more efficient. How you do that, and the technology, and labor cost and the labor efficiency and the labor shortage, all of those things going to drive this adoption of technology in next few years. I think this industry is ripe for a change significantly, and adoption of technologies.
Great. Thank you, Vashi. How about you, Murali? Any closing comments?
Wasi summarized it very well, Ajay. So ripe for change, that's how I see it as well. This space is ripe for change. Is the next revolution is going to happen in the BCM space because of digital technologies and SCM.
Wonderful. No, thank you. It's truly encouraging to get the insights from both you, Vasi, and Murali on how we can redesign, reshape, and strategize the supply chain in the context of implementing Industry 4.0 initiatives. Yes, we are beginning the journey and the moment is ripe, as both of you mentioned. So we are looking forward to, for the rest of the groups who are listening into you, to adopt the best practices or the strategy roadmap that you laid out. And hopefully the session was helpful to everybody. Given the fact that the BCM industry is just in the process of embarking on the supply chain 4.0 journey, we are very excited, and thanks a lot for these insights provided. Over to you, Candace.
Thank you, Ajay. We now have time to take a few audience questions. The first question is, in your experience, what are the top roadblocks CIOs get into while building the case for supply chain digitalization? Murali, do you want to take that?
Yes, Candace. So for me, I would answer this in a different way. In order for you to have a successful roadmap executed, more than a roadblock, the top management support is very important. Business leadership support, right? So at HIL, we started this journey three years back. The MD and CEO, Dhirup Roy Chaudhary, he joined and he's committed to make this digitalization happen. And his energy and his commitment spills to the entire leadership team. And that has been a boon for me to drive the digitalization at HIL. And any transformation starts at the top. And it's very important to have that kind of a commitment from CEO himself.
Thank you. The next question we received is, how should leaders measure the effectiveness of their supply chain 4.0 programs? Wasi, do you want to expand on this?
Yeah, sure, Candace. So basically, you got to look at, what the objectives of your supply chain 4.0. It should not be just an acronym and some technology you throw at something, right? The objectives is if it is gaining more business share, if it's gaining customer satisfaction, if it is, making the business more profitable. So we have to identify the objectives. In our case, it is all about customer satisfaction. So everything we do around how satisfies our customer, are we able to give our customer better service? Is our SLAs better? So we are bringing in technology to address those. And for us, is everything comes down to did we make it easy for our customer to do business with us? Did we make it easy for customer to find our product? Did we make it easy for customer to order from us? So any kind of supply chain, at the end game is customers, right? You can do all the technology in the back end, but the end game is customers. We want to be in the Amazon of the BCM industry, but we don't have that scale, but we can learn a lot from them. It all comes down to is customer satisfaction and the service level.
Thank you, Wasi. We have time for one final question, and that is, what approach should organizations adopt to shortlist their supply chain 4.0 use cases for pilot programs? Do you also want to take this, Wasi?
Sure. As I said, you need to understand your customer demographic, right? What you're trying to achieve. Is your supply chains, if we're manufacturing part of the BCM, is a different customer segments. And if we're in the distribution part of it, is a different customer segments. You have to understand your customer, you have to understand your end user. Your strategy should be based on that. And study should be what you need to achieve, right? Am I trying to be more efficient, trying to be more responsive to the customer? So I would suggest that myself, for example, my strategy is all based on what our business is trying to do, what our executives have in their minds, how we are going to support our customers, right? At the end of the day, as I said before, the whole industry depends on customer, is a relationship-based industry. So you want to make sure you cater your strategy or develop strategy that support the customer service mindsets.
Thank you so much. So we will now wrap things up. We appreciate everyone attending today and hope you found this webinar valuable. A special thank you to our presenters, Wasi, Murali, and Ajay, for sharing your perspectives. For those with questions not covered today, we will follow up via email. Again, thank you for attending Pragmatic Supply Chain 4.0 Strategies to Transform the Building and Construction Material Industry. We hope to see you at a future webinar. Have a good day.